Welcome back to Parenting Unpacked. You're here with Siobhan Kennedy Costantini and Kristen Summer. I forgot to put the doctors on our name because you know what? I'm fucking sick of it. I feel pretentious. I feel like an imposter. People keep thinking that I'm a medical doctor or a clinical psychologist, and like, guys, clinical psychologists typically don't have doctor in front of their name unless they're super like impressive and did like a research clinical degree. But anyways, that's really beside the point. I always tend to go off on tangents at the start of episodes. Siobhan, how are you?
Hello, I'm very well. Yes, we're doctors, but we're not medical doctors and we're not clinical doctors. So we're academic researchers in child development. So we're well versed in child development, how kids learn, grow physically, in terms of their cognitive and social and emotional and psychological development. But no, we can't fix anything else or much of anything. The end.
The end.
But
Thank you for coming to our podcast.
Anyway,
that is all we have for you today. Goodbye. Oh.
No. So we're two friends who did our PhDs together who often chat about, did you hear the latest thing on insert social media? And Kristen had the wonderful idea a couple of months ago to record it. And so that's what we do. And some of you like listening to it. And that's fun for us.
So fun for us. And today, Siobhan, I was on live this morning on TikTok and I was like, I don't know what we're talking about on today's episode. I really hope that Siobhan just like comes to me with a topic. And you didn't, but that's okay because we came up with one while we were chatting in the last 30 seconds before we hit record. So this one is not a safe topic by any measure.
No, a little controversial.
Just a little bit, but you know what? Let's roll with it. Let's see what happens, hey? So Siobhan.
Okay, should we provide some context?
Yeah, let's do it. Do you want to provide it? You're better spoken at this.
I will try, and I can try. I'll try based on the very limited information I have, and you can fill in the gaps.
I also have limited information.
So, well, that's cool. So we're two uninformed people coming at you with some stuff. Feel free to correct us. We're very open to being corrected. And accept, like true and good scientists, we acknowledge and accept our failings and correct when and where we can. Yep. So, TikTok is can be a dumpster fire of drama, which it is at the moment.
Oh, always.
I don't really TikTok. I have a TikTok. I haven't posted anything in months. Kristen has a TikTok. She posts regularly. So there is a lady there who I have not interacted with personally whatsoever. Kristen has. Her name is Ali Marie here. She is a devout Roman Catholic, and she, from what I have heard, has some problematic views that she has shared openly that aren't held by you or I.
Yes. Now, we've spoken about Ali on the podcast briefly before, because like everyone is cancelling Ali, and she came recommended to you, Siobhan, through another mum that follows you. And I was like, look, it's a bit tricky talking about Ali because she's got a lot of drama behind her and she's not really a safe space for the LGBTQIA+ community. And I started my own level of drama by stitching a video of hers, knowing that she did that, but wanting to not join the cancel party, because I feel like when you join the cancel party with someone with extremist views, it doesn't push them away from those extremist views. It cements them in those views.
Helps them double down.
And that kind of just pushes them. It pushes their content out onto feeds because it's dramatic and like people like engage on it.
Most of it's exciting.
Yeah, and that's always the stuff that spreads the fastest. So I was like, I don't want to start this cancel party. I want to just like, you know, work slowly towards like, you know, educating. And for the most part, she has since now gone private on her page on TikTok, which is a big thing when you've got 200,000+ followers. And she did that because she says she wants to do the work of trying to understand the contradiction between her belief system and the science or the popular opinion or whatever it is. And there's a lot that goes into this. Now, we're not tackling the science of LGBTQIA+ community today. I'm actually working to get a couple of people on the podcast. I met someone yesterday, Siobhan, actually, who is amazing. She is a trans woman who is also doing a PhD in gender diverse identity. Hopefully,
amazing.
she wants to join us on the podcast.
I'd love to speak with her.
She's so cool.
If she wants to and she's comfortable.
That's exactly what I said. And I was like, look, I'll help you with your research, like with recruiting and stuff, because I have huge reach. And if you want to help me, like you can, but there's no expectation. I'll help you regardless, because like, you know, I'm all about using my platform to like progress science and like help people. I don't really care if I get anything in return.
And it's an underfunded, under-researched area. So more research is better.
Yeah, and her work is on like bettering clinicians as well and bettering their understanding of gender diverse identities. But we're not talking about LGBTQIA plus community members today. We're talking about religion and parenting, because this whole like drama has kind of sparked this question of like, how does religion and parenting kind of intersect? How does religion come about? Why is it so geographically isolated? And like the hint here and the spoiler is that it's generally embedded by parent to child, as most social learning and information dissemination moves down the cultural lineage, the generational lineage. So I want to talk about that today, because we realized, I didn't even know this about you, Siobhan, but you were raised in a very Catholic household. I was raised in a Catholic school, but I didn't go to church very often. So we were like the lazy Catholics, and I am now atheist. So I'd love to talk to you about this, how your childhood looked, what your parents did, and how you're navigating, like what your faith is now, and how you're navigating that with your own child. So tell me all about it.
Yeah. Wow, big question. And I don't have answers to all of them, but let's explore anyway and chat. So as Kristen said, I was raised Roman Catholic. My name is Siobhan. It's an Irish name. My last name is Kennedy. So we come from a long line of Irish Catholics, big families. I've got 40 plus people in my extended family who regularly catch up. It's chaos. There's children everywhere. It's wonderful. We're loud. We express our emotions through anger. And that's just how we do things. So there's a lot of cultural baggage there. The Catholic guilt was never really a thing that I experienced, which is great. I don't know whether that's like me personally. I try not to do guilt. I don't really engage with guilt as a concept as much as I can. There are exceptions. But yeah, so I was raised in a Catholic family. There's 5 kids, 2 parents. We went to church every Sunday. We went to all the high holidays. We were heavily involved in our church community. I we kind of did Sunday school. Like there was children's mass where basically in the morning, all the kids, mind you, we never went to it because it was only offered in the morning masses, and my family, we're not morning people. So we never went to the morning mass, but it was fun because we got to, as kids, scoot off and then draw pictures and then come back and show our pictures, and everyone in the congregation clapped and we felt proud of our coloring.
Wait.
That was lovely.
There's an afternoon mass? This is how bad of like a Catholic I was.
Yeah, no. I mean, every parish is different. So, the Catholic churches, so parishes, like you have a church, and it's usually suburb to suburb. But as there are fewer people going to church, there's the suburb, like the parishes are bigger, they cover larger ground. But so my growing up, we had 2 churches, like 2 buildings in our parish. So there was Saturday night mass, and then Sunday morning mass, and then Sunday night mass. You only ever went to one. I mean, some people went to multiple, but they were crazy.
That's a lot.
We went to one. We usually went to Sunday night or Saturday night because, trying to wake up 5 children and get there by 8 a.m. That's not going to happen. No. We did it once or twice. My favorite time was when we went to the mass further afield because they didn't have any music. So it only lasted a half hour, and they had a clock on the wall. So
that's awesome.
It was brilliant. It was in and out. Everyone, we didn't go to that one too often because it was boring because there was no music.
Yeah.
Which when you're a kid, that's the only real fun part. But yeah. So what do you want to know?
Okay. Well, not so much about the mass and the attendance of it, but I want to know how those Catholic values.
That makes sense.
How those Catholic values kind of penetrated your parents' parenting of you. Did you ever have to do, I think it's called first time discipline. Like when I first, someone was like, can you do a video on first time discipline? And I did some research on it and I can't find much. I could just find some Catholic blogs.
I've never heard of this.
I found some Catholic blogs and it was just basically the same thing as gentle parenting. But when I posted the video saying when I found that, they were like, no, It is not. It is the expectation that your child obeys you regardless. There is no compassion. There is no empathy. There is no wide fields and solid fences, which is my favorite saying from Siobhan last week. I am all over that saying now. But there is none of that. It's just this expectation that the child will obey the very first time. And it's usually a very punitive punishment, even though it sounds like they're natural and logical consequences. It sounds like on the like outward facing blog.
This is crazy.
It sounds like on the outward facing blog, it's like, we're safe people. Like, we are in line with like what everyone else is doing. And then like everyone's like, that was not my experience of first time discipline. My experience was that I was like punished, and like little babies were like forced to sit on a rug to sit through the entire mass. And like was just expected to like obey their parents, because apparently there's a passage in the Bible about obeying your father or something like that, and people take that very literally.
There is a passage about that. So that's hilarious. Sorry, not to minimize. Like
Interesting,
sorry, okay,
not
I should
hilarious.
be more gentle and kind. It's interesting. Yeah. That was not my experience in the slightest.
Yeah.
My mother is a speech pathologist and is a pediatric speech pathologist, so she has a lot of understanding and background in child development, and a lot of my interest and why I pursued the career I did came from her work and conversations I had growing up about all these things that I found fascinating, even as a child, learning about child development. So no, I have no experience with that. That was not how I was raised, because it doesn't work. Children don't obey. That's just generally not the vibe. There is an old, like, so the Bible is, the Christian Bible is separated into the Old Testament and the New Testament. The obeying your father stuff is in the Old Testament, which is the more punitive, like rule-based. And then there's the New Testament, which is the Jesus part. There's no Jesus in the Old Testament. And Christians, as followers of Jesus, tend to focus their efforts on the New Testament. And Jesus is all about bring me your children, teach them, and like that. Like it's all about children are beautiful and special and important and need to be cared for and looked after. So I wouldn't say that first time discipline, based on your description, would fit what Jesus has to say. But as I said, coming at this uninformed, feel free to correct me or come at me with whatever information, and I'm open to dialogue. But no, that was not my experience growing up. In my family anyway, it was kind of the rule, quote unquote rule, that before your first communion, which was about 7 or 8, you weren't a full member of the church, which kind of meant, in terms of how my parents addressed things, was that we were there to be part of the community, but we weren't required to sit still for an hour, because that's not how that works. So we usually had coloring books on the floor. Mum usually separated us because we'd squabble, because that's how siblings work. I have memories of like walking up and down the chairs, smiling at old men and old ladies, shaking my hand, and just loveliness. And then when we got a bit too rowdy, Mum or Dad would take us outside, and then we'd pick flowers in the garden. Like I just have lovely memories of. But then once we had our first communion, Mum and Dad sat us down and explained that we were full members of the church, and that required us to listen and pay attention and take on board what we can. And if we had any questions, we could talk with them afterwards about it, which we did. So my parents had a very Jesuit kind of approach, which historically the Jesuits, who are a type of priest within the Catholic faith, approach things very intellectually, very theologically. So it's things are questioned and thought through in real philosophical terms. So that was kind of the background that I was raised in.
That's really, really interesting. And I'm sure it's a very different experience for all sorts of different Catholics. And it's really interesting, and Christians and any other religion as well. It's really interesting how this same text, this same doctrine, can be interpreted in so many different lights. And the way that we practice these things can be so incredibly different. That for some people it can be taken to this really extreme place, and for other people it's really like this lax and flexible thing, because it's more about the overall overarching spiritual beliefs and things like that. So that's really interesting. We're not going to get too much into the taboo of it. I will ask a couple of like touchy topics based on your parents' beliefs, who they sound like they're a bit more Catholic, I guess, than you are. which tends to be the case a lot, I think, now with as we get down the generations, that like that rigid adherence to old school kind of Catholicism seems to be letting go as the world is changing, which is really interesting to see. But for your parents, when you were raised, what did they teach you about things like LGBTQIA plus communities?
Yeah, that's, oh wow, this is heavy
Oh
because
gosh.
I had so many and continue to have, not heavy, it's not bad. And I preface this with these are my versions and rememberings of my conversations with my parents, which is not their
Yeah.
views per se, and I can and might get things wrong. But it's been really interesting because those conversations and views have changed over the
Yeah.
years. And I reflecting on the anyway, I'll jump into it. So I remember, so I was born in '89. So AIDS and like the HIV
Yeah.
pandemic had that was obviously my parents' knowledge, and I didn't know about any of that until I was kind of a early teenager. But that was the kind of background of my parents coming into having kids. Um, I've had so many interesting conversations. So my parents' modern day views about LGBT IAQ plus, I think I got a letters community, are really open and loving. They of the conversations we've had, it seems to be that um, they don't view it as a choice. They view it as a way you are. They view it as an unfairly difficult life because of societal pressures. So that we've had a few conversations about, there's been little things like, oh, when Timo grows up and gets married, he finds a lovely lady. And I say, or man. And they say, yes, yes, but we don't wish that. And I say, why don't we wish that? That's fine. We're happy with that. And they go, oh, his life would be harder. And of course you don't wish that. And I'm like, what? Like wearing glasses is harder? And Mum's like, exactly. She goes, I don't wish that that you can't see.
This is
And I was like,
this
okay,
is
good.
valid.
Just so we're clarifying.
Yeah, we don't wish for anything that makes our child's life harder, I guess. And unfortunately, at this point in time, being a member of the LGBTQIA plus community is harder. But the hope is that by the time our children grow up, it isn't harder. It's normative, and it's just the same. And like, unfortunately, not unfortunately, that burden comes to us to make it very normal and raise this generation of children seeing it as normal. So anyway, cool.
Exactly. No, exactly. And I think, I guess a big part is that during our lifetime that we have a lot more, it's much more open in that, like in the community, we see people living healthy, happy, fulfilled lives, and live their life openly and freely as a member of that community. Whereas obviously, historically, for our parents, they've seen, because of the shame and the stigma and the cruelty, they've seen a lot of people who are part of that community be affected by those things. So I guess they come at it with a more complicated view, if that makes sense. I don't, not to minimize, or that they've seen more of the pain, whereas we've seen more of the progress.
Yes, absolutely. We stand on the shoulders of giants when it comes to like progress in this community. Like the people that came before us paved the way, just like women did.
They've done the work.
Like women really paved the way for us to be, you know, working mothers or stay-at-home mothers, and to have no shame about either of those things. And there's still a long way to come, but like we're definitely like things are not the way they used to be. Okay, so that's cool. So if that was like, you were like, clearly there's no like dissonance there between the way that you were raised and then the way that you're raising Timo. So can you give me a bit of background about like what kind of like what's your spiritual belief at this point? And like, yeah.
Oh, such a good question. I don't know. So as we talked about before we started recording, I identify as culturally Catholic. So I don't go to church, much to my mother's consternation. We have little tiffs, gentle, kind tips about that. She doesn't love that I don't go to church, but I don't. And there's lots of reasons for that. Partly there's a lot I don't agree with the church. There's a lot that I do agree with. I agree with the more general ideas of compassion and care and empathy and doing what you can for others and all those kinds of things. There's some specifics that I think we don't need to focus on, like like, and I think this is a big part of it. Like I truly, so the religion and the culture and Catholicism that my parents were raised in is very community
Mm-hmm.
based.
Yeah.
So you attend mass to be a part of community and to worship and pray and gather as a community to experience
Mm-hmm.
um, the divine in humanity. So there's a whole bunch of theology behind there that I won't unpack. But I view my spirituality as much more individual.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had lots of really awesome in-depth conversations with some of my siblings about this stuff. But I view my spirituality as between me and whatever's there. I don't. So after having had Timo, I kind of got in. Not, I didn't get into Buddhism, but I did a lot of reading on mindfulness and Buddhist
Mm-hmm.
practices to try and help calm my overactive
Absolutely.
nervous system. Uh, and it was I found it really amusing because so many of the passages and the teachings I was learning, I'd come to my mum and be like, "Hey, this is what you taught me. Are you Buddhist?" And she went, "Well, no, but this is." And we had some really like in-depth theological discussions about how at the root of it, so much of religion is the same.
Absolutely.
It's about connecting with a divinity within
Mm-hmm.
humanity. It's about finding um, the the kind of core of what it means to be human and how that connects to a
Mm-hmm.
higher consciousness and kind of higher connection to
Mm-hmm.
others. Um, and yeah, like, and particularly my parents, they were raised Catholic, but they kind of really grew into their own Catholicism as adults in the
Mm-hmm.
70s, which in Australia at that time there was like a real big Buddhist influence.
Oh, cool.
So much of, and which ties into the Jesuit
Mm-hmm.
influence as well.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of stuff where it'd be like, you just use different words to describe the same idea. And I was like, yeah, pretty much. It's like, okay, well, that's a bit of a mind bend. I thought that this was, yeah. Anyway, it's just been really, really interesting to re-experience some of this stuff as an
Mm-hmm.
adult because and my mother she said this to me with respect, but she rightly said like so many of my ideas around Catholicism and religion are quite childlike because the last time I engaged with a lot of these ideas was as a child, and a lot of the last time I questioned these things was as an adolescent
Mm.
and a child before I kind of stepped away. But I'm kind of starting to re-explore, partly because I find so much comfort in the
Absolutely.
rituals of my um, my childhood. Like
Mm-hmm.
I have so many amazing memories of. I mean, it helps that we use a lot of candles and fire, and as we've talked about in past podcasts, I love
I know you
fire.
do
I'm
your
a total
pyro.
pyro. I I love it, and there's a lot of fire and candles and stuff in our rituals for lots of reasons
Mm.
that go back centuries and centuries. Um,
Mm-hmm.
anyway, I've
Yeah.
digressed. How does that affect raising Timo? So we've had Timo baptized in the Catholic faith. Um, I don't know why. Partly, I I I I've questioned myself on this so many times. Partly, it's about continuity of culture for me.
Yes,
It's about
absolutely.
I was baptized, my mother, my grandma, like I can count back like 10
Mm.
generations. This is what my
It
family
feels
does.
right for
So
you.
it's all
Yeah.
important. It feels exactly. It feels right. Um, we intend. My husband went to Catholic schools. He was raised as a bit of a lapsed Catholic, but his mother is from a Scottish Catholic family, so that's
Mm-hmm.
important and a big part of her culture too. My father-in-law was raised as a um, agnostic, atheist Italian with kind of Catholic sprinklings far out in the far background. But there's no real.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So Timo has been baptized. He hasn't been to church. I don't really see how there's any point. He doesn't sit still
Mm-hmm.
anywhere, let alone in
Mm-hmm.
mass. Um, but yeah, he probably will go to Catholic schools. We haven't quite talked about that. My husband went to Catholic high
Mm-hmm.
school. I went to Catholic primary and high school. But yeah, for me, it's a lot about community. It's about viewing the
Mm-hmm.
world um, as like being of service to others.
Mhm.
That kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Now, this seems like a really good breaking point because I did a lecture on religion at the end of last year. So I'm going to run through my notes really quickly and give you a really quick, like, nerding out overview of how a religion
Love
originated, how we understand it from the developmental perspective. And now, please know that I say this with the most scientific perspective. I am not trying to infringe on anyone's beliefs. This is coming from a really unbiased perspective. Given that I am an atheist, I have no stake in any given religion, but I also don't begrudge.
Can I do a quick caveat? So again, this is said with love. I have found that most researchers who study religion don't have a personal experience of religion, which is fine, but it means sometimes it comes without context and without understanding. Like I've spoken to religion researchers and explained my perspective of a finding, and they're like, "What? Catholics don't do that?" I'm like, "I'm a Catholic and I do that." So there's a billion Catholics in the world. There are a billion Muslims in the world. We don't all do the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, which I know we've talked about this and you completely understand, but just to broader context that there's nuance that will be missing.
And actually we're not talking about any specific religion at all, to be honest. We're just talking about how religion as a concept is embedded in children so early in life and how it perpetuates across cultures. Because what you guys might not know is that although it feels like there's not as many religious people in the world, but more than 8 in 10 actually identify with a religious group. And there is only 2.4% of the world that is atheists, and the other 18% or whatever are agnostics. 20% of the world is Muslim, 13% is Hindu, 17% is Roman Catholic, and so on and so forth. So already we have this really widespread idea that religion isn't just on its way out. It's still really well held across the world. It might just be held in a different way. Now, what's really interesting is that I can be pretty confident that if I asked you where you grew up, I could probably guess your belief system if you have one. And that's probably because if you grew up in South America, you're very likely to be Roman Catholic. If you grew up in Australia, you're likely to be Protestant or Christian, because we're highly influenced by the culture that we're embedded in for deciding on our religious belief. And that's got a lot to do with our parents, because as with all things, there's this thing called cumulative culture. And that's the idea that we passed information down to our direct descendants. And who are our direct descendants? Well, they're our kids. So if you're the child, your parents are going to pass information down to you. And generally, it's going to be the same information of those around them because it's a community-based thing as well. So, my headphones are about to run out of battery, which is unfortunate, but we will move along anyway. So there's a lot of reasons.
Maybe that's God cancelling them. I'm joking.
It's one of the deities not happy that we're talking about all deities under a specific ambiguous term.
They're getting jealous.
And we're not talking about any gods here. We're actually talking about why humans choose religion to begin with. Now, if I asked you why you think religion is so important, or why you have religious belief, or why it's so prevalent, things you might say is because it's a sense of belonging, it's community, it's a fear of death, it gives you purpose, it gives you faith, it's culture. These are the main themes that I usually pull out of my students when I give this lecture. And what's really interesting is that humans find randomness really aversive. We don't like randomness. So we need something to explain the randomness.
Humans are pattern-seeking creatures. We seek meaning even when we're trying not to.
And it doesn't matter what kind of religious belief system you have, whether it's fate or destiny. These things are really well held. They've been passed down from generations. And as science has progressed, yes, we've kind of handed over the randomness away from supernatural deities to scientific explanations. That's why science has progressed so much, because we have this hunger to learn. So it's kind of comedic that religion and science are actually progressing together, because they're
they're two sides of the same coin.
They're motivated by the same thing, and that's randomness, right? So yeah, we have this drive to explain randomness, and for a long time, and still now, we use supernatural deities to do this, or at least I say this as an atheist. I mean, there's a lot of other reasons.
The collective we.
Yeah, the collective we. Okay, so I can give you a quick example of an experiment where this kind of proves that people need to believe in some. Actually, no, I'm going to skip that because that's a bit annoying unless I have slides in front of you. Okay, so why else do we have like religious beliefs? So it's obviously a sense of community, and that's one of the things that I think that as an atheist we kind of miss a little bit in our family, is that we'd have to make our own sense of community, our own village, and like we need a different like kind of glue to stick us together if we don't have religious belief, because when you have a shared ideology, it makes it really easy to relate to people and to make this community and village. But it also does something else. It's like the belief in supernatural deities is this like supernatural police force. Like it's this thing that keeps you good, quote unquote, good, whatever, even when no one else is around to watch you. Because what we know, even for kids, is that if there is someone watching you, you are less likely to cheat. This is such a fun experiment to do with kids.
This is awesome
so
research.
Fun.
Awesome
so when you put a kid in a room and you're there and you tell them don't cross this line, and you give them like an impossible task of throwing balls in this like teeny tiny little hole, what they'll do is they'll get really frustrated, but they're very unlikely to cross that line. Now, if you leave the room,
what age group are these kids?
I think they're actually up to 6 or 7. Like, it's hilarious.
Okay.
Now, if you leave the room and you don't tell them anything about anyone being in there, what you'll find is that they'll cheat. Like, if they know there's no one watching them, and we watch them through two-way mirrors, and it is hilarious.
Sensible.
You'll see that they walk straight over the line. I've seen kids pick up entire buckets of balls, walk across the line, tip them in, and you'll walk in and you go, wow, how'd you go? And they'll go, great. And you ask them, like, did you cheat? And they'll be like, of course not. Because, like, don't invite a kid to cheat. It's mean. But, of course, they won't tell you, because what you've done is you've actually motivated them to cheat.
What's the point of cheating if you're telling everyone that?
Yeah, and the reason they cheat is because we, like, give them a reward of, like, stickers. Where, like, the more balls you get and the more stickers you get, and kids are highly motivated by stickers. They are a great currency for children. Anyways, so that's really interesting. If you're there, they don't cheat. If you're gone, they do cheat. Now, what was really fun is that in one study, they said that there was either a like person watching on a camera, and that was enough for them to be like, oh, I'm not going to cheat. And what else they did was they said that there was a supernatural person that could see in the room at all times. So it wasn't someone watching via camera. It was just someone that monitors the room, like a supernatural deity. And children don't cheat if they think there is a supernatural deity or like some kind of ghost, basically.
It was some like special wizard man that was
there's two
in charge.
There's
of the
two
room,
studies.
right?
So that's the Friendly Professor that Rowan published recently. We can link that in the bio. Right. I don't think he actually replicated this effect, but I think it was tricky. It was actually I can't remember the experiment, but they called the supernatural agent Alice. So anyways, so kids didn't cheat when a supernatural agent was quote unquote watching them. And this same logic can be applied to the reason that we have supernatural deities. It's a way to keep people adhering to the rules, even when no one else is observing them. It's a way to keep people good and honest, and to avert sin. It
can be viewed as like a social tool. Mm-hmm. A social tool to help, like what's the right word? Help kind of modulate or, not police. That feels too strong, but
that's what I said.
Exactly it. It's a social tool to help. Yeah, it's a social tool to help keep people in line.
Yes, this is exactly right. And this doesn't just apply to children. I guarantee you this works with adults too, because they did an experiment where they got adults in a room and they had to do a test. And the experimenter like left the room and very clearly took the answer sheet and put it in a drawer where the like participant can see it. Now, if there was nothing in the room, participants were told like, you know, whatever, like I'll be right back. More times than not, participants would go and get that answer sheet and cheat because the task was really hard. Now, if they were told upon walking to the room that this hallway was this building was haunted by a ghost, they were less likely to cheat.
I haven't heard this.
So good.
I haven't heard this condition. I haven't heard this part of this study. That's amazing. It's just haunted. It's a haunted hallway. That's all they're told.
And it's not even that it is haunted. It's like I've heard lots of people talking about the fact that this building is haunted. And then they're like, okay,
wow. So it's a rumor that the building is haunted.
And then they were like, okay, let's see if they'll do something else really silly. They printed out some eyes and they stuck them to the wall. And if there were eyes stuck to the wall, they wouldn't cheat. Just amazing. A picture of eyes.
Is this where was this study done?
This study, I don't know. I don't have the reference in here. I'm a terrible lecturer.
No, not at all. So the only reason I ask is that I know for a fact that in the United States there's a much higher belief in ghosts.
It would have been done in the US.
Angels,
absolutely.
All these kinds of things.
Yeah, as we know, science is weird.
Just because
it's mostly done in the US. Like 99% of research is conducted in the US, so it's very likely been conducted in the US. It's just hilarious. So like this idea that like someone is watching you keeps you honest. And it's like the lightest pressure. Like a picture of eyes on the wall is enough.
A picture of eyes
is enough pressure for you not to cheat. And I mean, unless you're someone like me, where I can't cheat or lie or do anything regardless of whether anyone's watching me because I've got this weird internal.
Hilarious. I think I would still cheat.
I couldn't cheat even if I was in the normal condition. I would just panic and I would feel so bad. And my anxiety, I hate it about me. It makes me very anxious all the time.
Sorry, when I say I'm sorry, I don't love that it makes you anxious. I find it incredibly interesting. So, complete side note, my family is obsessed with Wordle. We've got a family chat that we share our Wordle results. Like, it's highly competitive. I'm very frustrated that I'm not winning. I'm not even close to winning. I do very poorly because I'm very impatient and I just guess words and I'm not strategic about it.
Me neither.
And like I really should be because my two sisters are dominating the game. And it's really affecting my identity as a person who's good with words, but I've just decided to let them have it because my younger sisters don't always win things and they're brilliant at this game. Anyway, all of this aside, there's a lot of contention because my mum, she doesn't cheat at all. She's like you. She couldn't cheat if her life depended on it. She's incredibly lots of integrity, but she also loves to give clues.
So she'll help other people cheat.
Yeah, which is yes, but she doesn't. It's hilarious. So the other day I was we turned up to Mum's house at 9 because Timo was awake early, and so we were there early before everyone had completed their Wordle, and because literally as soon as someone's done it, they share it to the family chat. But I walked in and I know Mum and Dad had done it. And I went, so how's the Wordle work today? Any hints? You want to help me cheat? Wouldn't it be hilarious if I got it in one guess? Because you would get 6 guesses to guess the word. Wouldn't it be hilarious if I get it in one guess and then all the others will like lose their minds that I did so well? And my mother looked horrified and appalled that I would cheat and rig the system in this way. But then proceeded to give me such specific clues that she basically helped me cheat. She wasn't trying to. She just cannot help herself. And she's like, there is a double letter today. Oh, and I said, okay, based on the English language, it's probably an L, a D, or a T. And she said, it's one of those. And I'm like, Catherine,
stop it.
You are. Yeah. But then she literally cannot help herself. I was like, I wonder if it's D. And then her eyes light up. And then I just asked like 2 more questions. I was like, you've given me the word. So I got it in one, like I had hoped I would, put it out. And all of my siblings are like, what? That's crazy talk. How did you do that? You must have cheated. And I went, you guys know me very well. Yes, that's exactly what happened. And went on to explain the story. But anyway, Wordle's the best. But I also now I've decided not to, in an effort to protect my ego, I don't share my score because I do so badly. So I just don't tell anyone how badly I do. And I congratulate my siblings when they do very well. My sister got it in 2 today.
A lot.
That's very high.
High achieving. I hate high achievers sometimes.
Anyway, sorry. Absolute sidebar.
Sidebar, but totally fine because Siobhan, the next study I've got to tell you about is actually about theory of mind and how it develops with God and Mum. You sound like you know all of these already. Did you give this lecture at one point?
No, but I could do. Actually, maybe
you probably did.
10 years ago.
Oh, probably not that long ago. You're not that old.
No.
Anyways, so let's.
No, the wrinkles say otherwise. Kidding. Continue.
Siobhan, you were not that old. You would have been like 22. You would
I
have
know,
barely
but I like
started
to
your
pretend I
PhD,
am.
or if you had started your PhD at that point. Okay. Anyways,
I think
oh
so,
my God,
yeah.
we are so distractible. Anyways, I'm going to get back to the theory of mind experiment. So if you guys don't know what theory of mind is, it's the ability to take the perspective of someone else, to like think into like what knowledge they have in their mind. Now this develops at like around 4, usually. Before they're 4, they seem to think that everyone else has the same knowledge as them. So the classical experiment is like crayons in a Band-Aid box. Like you show them a Band-Aid box and you go, what do you think's in here? And they'll go, Band-Aids, duh. And then you'll open it and show them and they're like, oh my God, it's crayons. And you go, okay, now like I'll bring someone else into the room. This person hasn't seen what's inside this box. What do you think they think is inside this box? And they'll be like, crayons, duh, if they haven't passed theory of mind yet. But if they have passed it, they'll be like Band-Aids because, you know, they didn't see what was inside the box. And yeah, this is a really old school classical test. Anyways, where it gets really fun and cool is when you include God. So when you include God, what they find is that if you ask them what would mum thinks inside the box, they'll do like the classical theory of mind thing where they haven't passed, where they'll say, you know, it's crayons, but it's not. It's mum would think it's Band-Aids. And if you ask what would God think, they'll say it's crayons because they haven't passed theory of mind. When they're over 5, they will say, so mum, what do you think mum thinks is inside this box? The child will say Band-Aids because they passed theory of mind. So mum doesn't know it's actually crayons inside the Band-Aid box. But when they're asked what would God think, they say crayons. So there's a big difference here between what they think normal people thinks inside the box versus all-seeing entities like an all-knowing God.
All-knowing,
yeah. So it's really interesting that even at 5 they start like reasoning about.
That's very internalized, this idea.
Yeah, about these supernatural deities at this point. So yeah, this starts to develop really early in life, and that's really interesting to think about. But they also apply this to like supernatural characters as well. So if there's someone who is like super smart, they will think that he knows that there is crayons in the crayon box.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really interesting, like how it changes. And if there's someone who can see through things, like a superhero with laser vision, like they'll think they know what's in the crayon box as well. So it really applies for all supernatural deities with like extra like terrestrial knowledge, whatever it is.
Extra skills.
Yeah. So it's just that they're reasoning about God in the same way as other supernatural agents.
Which, based on like the foundation, because kids have wonderful imaginations and take things at face value. So when they get told that superhero has laser vision, they believe it. And based on the parameters of that information, it's a very sensible conclusion.
Absolutely. Now I'm just having a look through my notes to see if there's anything else that's really interesting. I have a really random tidbit here, and it's like about religious stories and how like they're not based off of fact, right? Like some people believe that they're based on fact, others don't. But one that's really interesting is the parting of the sea.
Well, so I'll share what my parents told me, and then you can share what you do.
Okay.
So my family is very science-minded, which is kind of where my name for my business came from. And so my dad is a timber tech, well, no, he's retired now, but he was like a timber scientist. He studied timber and wood and carpentry for the government too, and then like plantations. Anyway, science man. My grandfather was a scientist, agricultural scientist. My mum is science-minded. Anyway, so they were very like into like scientific explanations for things, including the stories in the Bible. So we were told that it was quite likely that there was a fast tide change. So that Moses was aware of when the tides changed and that the Egyptians were not, and that he got everyone to cross at when there was a sandbar available, and that the tide came in really quickly and then drowned the Egyptians.
That is very, very compelling of an argument, actually. There's a study that was published in PLOS ONE by Drews and Hahn. And the title of it is Dynamics of Wind Setdown at Suez and the Eastern Nile Delta. And basically it says that wind setdown is the drop in water level caused by wind stress acting on the surface of a body of water for an extended period of time. As the wind blows, water recedes from the upwind shore and exposes the terrain that was formerly underwater. Previous researchers have suggested wind setdown as a possible hydrodynamic explanation for Moses crossing the Red Sea, as described in Exodus 14. So
intense wind patterns changing.
Potentially, yeah. So by all means, there is a supernatural explanation for it. But as humans hate randomness, and sometimes supernatural explanations are just another random explanation, scientists step in and go, well, it could have been this. So there's multiple reasons why. Yeah. Either way, there could have been a good bloke called Moses who led his people out of Egypt and capitalized on a natural weather event that he knew existed, that the others did not, and he used that to his advantage, which is really, really interesting. This this podcast is very random at this stage.
That's good.
But yeah, I think
for us.
What else do I want to talk about? I'm trying to figure out what else. This is a 2-hour lecture that I've literally only just opened to skim through for the first time since last year. So I'm trying to figure out if there's anything else that's really interesting about it for you guys. But I don't know if there is. No, I think we'll stop there for a bit. There's obviously like the ritual kind of stuff, but the ritual stuff is really heavily embedded in the work I do and in social learning. So it might be better off talking about ritual later. But basically, like, as we know, religions are like drowned in ritual. Like, it's something that humans do. And it turns out that rituals are passed down really, really well. And it's because when there isn't a reason for why that action appears to be completed, humans attribute it to something of a higher power that they don't understand. And rather than like getting rid of those behaviors as looking redundant, they actually practice them with so much like rigor and faith that they'll actually over practice them as well. And those rituals will expand over time. And we see this in really little kids. And this is what
this ties into all the over imitation.
This is literally what my postdoc and part of my PhD was on, because I tried to see if kids would do this with robots as well, to see if robots could be part of this like transmission of cultural knowledge across generations in the future, because like cumulative culture is really important to how humans know so much. And one of the very first videos I posted on TikTok that was evidence-based was about how your child could invent the iPhone, and it has a lot to do with cumulative culture. That's the accumulation of knowledge over generations. Like, we don't discover all knowledge from scratch. We don't discover fire and wheels every time a new generation occurs, like a lot of other species of animal do. We actually pass that knowledge down, which makes humans pretty special and primates.
I'm so sad that we're not recording another podcast today, because I'm so excited to talk about it.
We can absolutely talk about it next week.
We'll record all of this stuff another time.
Yes.
But no, I know you have to go, but I love this stuff.
Me too, right? So like, I did this.
That's why you've made a career out of it.
Just a little bit. I did this with robots and then got a postdoc like grant approved to do this for another 2 years. And what we found was that kids do like engage in rituals disseminated, so like originating with robots. They just don't do it quite as strongly as with humans, but they'll still do like silly redundant actions that they know aren't like part of it. They just don't do it as strongly. And that's really interesting, because it means that kids are so like stringent,
motivated.
Yeah, they're so motivated to like copy things that they don't see a reason for, that they'll do it in spite of that. And they do it from like 2 years old. So humans are just like, they're just geared this way, which is why religion is so prevalent, which is why so much of the world has religion. And look, this could be super offensive to people who have religious beliefs and feel like their beliefs are the right ones. So I apologize if I offended anyone. But as a scientist and a psychologist and just a human behavior kind of like
you're just sharing your beliefs,
I find all of this so interesting. Yeah, my belief is mostly that it's all social learning and cumulative culture, and it's so interesting. But yeah,
I don't actually. So as someone who I'm not I don't identify as religious myself, but I don't see how those two things are incompatible.
No, I don't think they are incompatible, but I do think that
I think they're perfectly compatible.
I do, however, think that for some people, their religious beliefs are so tied to their identity that it can become quite a threat on themselves for people to disagree with them.
Absolutely. Which is very kind of you to consider that.
I would hope to. I try to consider everyone's perspective in all that I do. And if I haven't, I let my followers yell at me, and then I learn from that and I do better because my followers know that I love being yelled at, because I actually do. I love being criticized. I mean, we're scientists, like academics. You send out your like work that you've worked on for so many years, and you send it out to other experts in the field who also have stakes in this. They usually are doing similar work and want their work to come out first, and then they slam your work and they're so mean. So we're very used to being criticized.
Happy to be yelled at. Would prefer if you did it nicely.
Yeah, please don't be rude. But like, also, I get it. I'll listen and I'll do better. Like, this is how we work. So yeah, we're like the perfect people to be on social media, I think, because like when you tell us,
I did block someone earlier this week.
Oh really? Oh, was it the person about?
Yeah, but
okay.
We can talk about that. Actually, let's jump straight into it. Magic and meltdown
moments. Meltdown moments.
I didn't melt down.
Okay.
I didn't melt down, but it was a bit sad. So I did a post about breastfeeding, and the image of the post was on the left-hand side, formula-fed babies, on the right-hand side, breastfed babies, and that they both end up eating French fries from the car floor. And my general sentiment was, this was extrapolated in the post, talking about how breastfeeding is great, the biological norm, it's how we evolved, it's wonderful, I support it, I did it, I was breastfed, I think breastfeeding's great. However, for lots of different reasons, not everyone can or does breastfeed. And in those instances, formula is a wonderful substitution that allows children to grow and be healthy and be safe. And that I support mothers to do whatever works best for them and their family. So, some people felt that my post was inaccurate, questioned my validity as a scientist, questioned the validity of my post as a scientific base, said that if you're science-minded, you should your post, the picture, not just the writing, but the picture in the post should say that formula babies are obese, increased rates of cancer, and that breastfed babies have better immune system. And the thing is, some of those things are based in science. That's true. But I pointed out to this person that there's plenty of science and neuroimaging studies to show that if you shame people and tell them that they've made terrible choices for their families and just are cruel and unkind, that's really bad for them and their mental health, which is in turn bad for their child. So anyway, there were a few people I had some really, I wouldn't say productive, but interesting conversations with, and they were open to conversation, which I was very grateful for. There was one lady in particular who was blocked, who finished her comment thread about, why are you even here? I'm done with this argument. I'm like, 'cause it's my page, lady.
Where else am I supposed to be?
This is
my business.
Anyway, she refused to engage privately or even publicly, and would just shut down everything. And she was just trolling. And I assume that she's got some good reasons to be as passionate as she is, which I support, but I don't support her going after people, particularly people who were very honest about the reasons and the pain that they had about not being able to breastfeed. Anyway, yeah, she got blocked because I can't handle that. No, I can handle it, but I'm not going to put that on a mum in my comment thread or my comments who is just trying the best she can.
I love how, like, oftentimes drama on Instagram also ends up as drama on TikTok. I don't know if they if like the feeds like talk to each other or something, or if like people are crossing over. But at the same time that your post came up and there was drama, I also had like videos on my feed talking about like the formula feeding versus breastfeeding drama, and I was like, this is really coincidental.
Formula feeding's a thing at the moment. There's been a formula.
That's right.
A recall of one of the formula. Yeah. So there's been a lot of. Well, see, formula's the devil, so that's why.
This makes sense. Now, like, I just want to, I'm just going to add to this story of yours because, like, you were super diplomatic in those comments and super kind, and I was really pissed off because one of the people...
I deleted a lot of things I typed out and then went, no, that's not helpful.
Yeah, meanwhile, I don't care. I'm so much more abrasive than Siobhan. You come here for the like well-balanced, calm nature of Siobhan and the chaotic toddler energy that is Kristen, and you like it. Now, like what happened? I got all like mama bear because when someone criticizes Siobhan as being not science-minded on her goddamn science-minded page, I get mad. This person said that, isn't this meant to be science-minded? The science is clear. Breastfeeding is best. And I was like, no. The science is clear that parents with impoverished mental health lead to severe implications for infants' social, emotional, and cognitive development. There is much science on this. You will not find a single scientist that simply says breastfeeding is best and fuck your mental health. Like, they won't say that. And I was very mad.
They won't.
But I think it was still very kindly worded. I didn't swear at her.
It was quite lovely. No, you didn't.
But I was very mad. And then I did a video on TikTok.
Speaking of, can I share I haven't seen it. I'll have to go watch. Can I share a magic moment with you?
Absolutely.
Timo started swearing.
Oh my God, I'm so here for this. Tell me about it.
So my husband and I swear quite liberally. But like that's just we're Australian. Yep. It's part of the culture. It's colourful. It's how you it's how you kind of you add a bit of salt and pepper to your language. There's a really great skit. Yeah, there's a great skit by Daniel Sloss, one of my favourite comedians, all about it. He's Scottish. Anyway, sidebar. So my husband was cooking some burgers on the barbecue. He dropped one. It fell in the dirt. And he went, "Oh fuck." Mm-hmm. And then Timo looked up and went, "Oh fuck." And then my husband went, "Oh shit." And he went, "Oh shit," because he realised. Anyway, we thought we got away with it. We came upstairs to eat dinner. Timo dropped his bobcat and went, "Oh fuck." And we went, "Oh no." At least it was in context. Well done.
Good language learning.
And I know. And he's a total sponge. Like his language has always been good, but he's really upping the vocab at the moment. And then again, we're like, just don't pay attention. Just give it no attention. Like avert their eyes. Don't let him see us smiling and laughing. Just pretend it didn't happen, and it'll slowly fade away into the background. The next morning, exactly the same thing happened.
It's a new word. So we love new words.
It's a new word. We of course will discourage it because whilst we're cool with him swearing at home, he's not old enough to understand context-specific language, and we'll continue to do these things in daycare, which we don't like. We don't need that. I don't need to be pulled aside. And
the novelty of it will wear off.
I'll let you know how it goes.
We know that like novelty is a thing and it'll wear off. I really hope so. I hope it's not one of his favorite ways to express things. But like, here's the science behind it. Kids actually learn like swear words with way better accuracy and way quicker than they learn normal words. And it's because they're usually said with so much expression. They're so emphasized. When you emphasize a word in your speech, they are way more likely to learn that. It's all about natural pedagogy. Anyways, that's aside from the point.
That can be a topic too.
So hilarious. So many topics.
We should write these down.
Though. We won't. I know us. We'll have a conversation for like a minute before the podcast starts and go, let's just put this on the podcast. We are terrible podcasters. I hope you guys that are listening at home are okay.
It's almost 11. You need to go.
I know I do. It's okay. We'll get there. Because I'm really enjoying this. I don't think I have a meltdown moment this week. Other than the fact that like at one point on the weekend, my daughter was just so upset for no reason. She was just like feeling gross, I think. And as a result, I was feeling gross. See, Siobhan, this is a video. Welcome back. That was an unplanned break because Siobhan decided that she needed to pee without warning me.
I needed to pee.
But like,
I'm a mother. I had a small bladder at the best of times before that. Then I had a small child who for 9 months used my bladder as a trampoline. It's not in the best shape.
No, I know that. But what's really hilarious is that you didn't tell me and you didn't turn your camera off. You thought that I couldn't see you pulling your pants down, but I could see that. So she turned her camera off. We edited that bit out. It's so fine. We're going to get back to the conversation we were having. Because what you guys...
You lose dignity as a mother.
It's so fine. I have no pelvic... my pelvic floor is not what it used to be, and that's so fine. What you guys don't know is that Siobhan always takes me to the bathroom with her at the end of every podcast so that we can finish off our chat.
Usually after we've stopped
recording. It's always after.
Not today.
No, today we went too long and that is okay. Now, my meltdown moment, my daughter was just feeling gross. I was feeling really gross. Like, it had been a long weekend. It had been a long week. We're just in a weird mood. And I was just so over it. I was just trying to unpack the dishwasher, and like, she'd just been so mad all day. She's a sensory seeker. She's just, it's endless, like, whatever. And what I did was like, you know what? Like, I haven't had the carrier out in months. And I was like, you know what? Let's just put you in the carrier forward facing, because it seems like you just want to cuddle. And I put the carrier on, and I asked her if she wanted to get in it, and she was like, yeah, let's effing do this, without actually swearing. I put her in, and we both just like instantly relaxed. It was like this massive cuddle, and like, I have like a lot of trauma associated with wearing my daughter, because like, it was the only way I could get her to sleep. It was exhausting and so painful for my body, and like the peak of my postnatal anxiety and depression. And I've like been avoiding it a lot lately, for the last 6 months or whatever. And the other day I was just like, let's just see what happens. And it felt good. It felt like we both just relaxed and got calm, and it was like a nice little cuddle. And yeah, so that was my meltdown turned into magic moment.
So magic. Yeah, I'm so happy.
Thank you.
That's lovely.
Anyways,
what a beautiful note to end on.
It really is.
From peeing to lovely cuddles.
This is exactly what it should be about. I mean, this podcast is for mums, and hey, if your pelvic floor is not what it used to be, welcome to the club. We're glad you're here. Yes, we should all be doing pelvic floor exercises right now, but are we? Not really. We should get better.
We should get a guest. I'll see. Oh, do I know any pelvic physio? We should have a guest talking about pelvic floor stuff, because I've got some really cool, interesting things I've learned recently, and I'd love their take.
It's going to make me feel guilty.
Let's add that to the list that we don't write down.
It's going to make me feel guilty for not getting my shit together and doing it. Like,
no. You've got lots of things going on.
I mean, but usually, like, you're meant to just do your pelvic floor exercises while doing things. But like, I already multitask enough. Like, the mental load of like doing pelvic floor exercises is tiring.
Yeah. There's time. You've got a good 60, 70 years left. Don't worry about it.
This is very true. 60, 70 years. What, you want me to be 100? That's a solid life.
I mean, it's better than less, maybe.
Yeah, let's not talk about mortality. That's a different episode altogether. Siobhan,
that's another episode.
It is time for us to leave. I'm very excited that you're not taking me to the toilet with you this time, because you've already done that.
Have.
I'm very proud of you. Maybe I'll take you with me. How this has gotten really weird.
Quite. Have a lovely day, everyone.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.